Hey, we're back!
Yay!
I don't have to do the intro this time because we already did it last time and this is technically a continuation.
Right. So we don't have to waste any time because this is spoiler central for Final Fantasy 12.
Yes.
Also known as Star Wars. Because that's really all Final Fantasy 12 is Star Wars.
Speaking of Star Wars, no, we're not going to do a Star Wars cast. It's too early.
Speaking of Star Wars, oh my god! Star Wars was really good because remember we had to cut it short because of Star Wars. Star Wars was quite good.
It was real good, yeah.
I very much enjoyed it.
I liked the part where Jar Jar Binks came back and beat up Kylo Ren in a Denny's parking lot.
Yeah. I thought that was intense. I always knew Jar Jar Binks was Snoke. But it's nice to have the theory confirmed, you know? And
it was really nice to see Rey pass on the pilot seat of the Millennium Falcon to Lumpy. Get the father-son duo piloting the ship now. It was really touching.
Yeah, no, it was incredibly moving. I clapped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I clapped when I saw it.
I clapped when I saw it. Yeah, it was amazing.
It broke new ground.
It did. Everything was completely different in that it was exactly what I wanted from it. It was everything you expected from a Star Wars, and that's what made it break new ground.
Yes.
I can't even say that one with a straight face. The Last Jedi is good. You should go watch it, but we're talking about Final Fantasy 12.
No, yeah. There's... we talked about last time about the gameplay and the presentation and all that, and how it is very unique in its presentation and its style, its artistic style. I really, really wish, thinking about it, I want a 3D game that is in the Ivalice, art style.
Yeah.
The way, the characters are drawn, in Tactics, or in Tactics 2, or in, the concept art for 12.
Yes.
But I still love how great 12 looks.
That's actually the game you're thinking of then is the War Lions for the PSP, because they look like that. That's that it's cel shaded. So that's actually the Akihiko Yoshida? I think that's his name. That's his art style, and so it's cel-shaded. It actually looks like it, and it has a young Balthier in it.
Oh,
so yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I think he's just a cameo character. I haven't actually played the War Lions, even though I've heard it's really, really good, and I think it's technically a remake of Final Fantasy Tactics, but don't quote me on that one. It has Balthier in it, and it's very good, and it's a cel-shade. Why do I have such a hard time saying that? Cel-shaded.
There you go. You got it.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
You'll get there. One day. One day you'll learn how to speak English.
I can't words. I was on the debate team. I won awards for speaking. I won awards. Oh no, I've fallen so far. But yeah, actually also Nier Automata's art was also, Akihiko Yoshida.
Was it? I can see it now. Okay, now that you mentioned it, I can see it, yeah.
Yeah, that art, the box art is Yoshida. And
okay.
That's why it looks so damn good, because Yoshida is a really good-ass artist.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we're getting off topic again. Final Fantasy 12 has got a really damn good story.
It is... like everything else in this game, it's so unique in that I would not think this was a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, if you had just called this Tales of Ivalice, which that was not a Tales of franchise joke, I just said that without thinking about it. Although Tales of Ivalice actually does sound like a Tales of game.
It does, a little bit. Tales of Ivalicia.
Yeah, ooh, shit. Yeah, that sounds rad. That's that third Berseria game we're waiting for.
But no, if you had just called this, I don't know, any sort of word mash that a lot of JRPGs tend to have, if they are trying to kind of be a Final Fantasy, Infinite Undiscovery, or...
Right. God, The Last Remnant, I think, was an old one from the Xbox 360 era, or Blue Dragon, or any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have called it, you know, the Evilist Alliance or whatever, because that's what the franchise is called, like the franchise within the franchise, and you wouldn't really even think it's like a Final Fantasy game. Like, if you took out all of the signifiers, like chocobos and shit, I mean, it's just different. It doesn't have any of the usual... I guess it's kind of like a return to form with, like, to, like, Final Fantasy IV, which is a weird thing to say, but, like, Final Fantasy IV's writing is not great. It won't commit to killing its characters. If you've never played Final Fantasy IV, don't worry, nobody actually dies in it. Because Final Fantasy IV pussies out at every single turn. But 12 doesn't do that, but it's still kind of thing where it's more about, like, less about, like, the romance and teenagers, although, I mean, Final Fantasy 12 is about teenagers, but you know what I mean. It's
a lot more about the politics and the government situation and the actual, not so much the war itself, but the political...
players in it?
The political and, like, falling out, or, like, the societal falling out of the war.
Yeah.
I
feel that.
You don't spend any time in the war. You are, you know, the people, like, working behind it. You are trying to confront the people who are, like, commanding the war.
Yeah, I feel that. And that's kind of what I, like, really enjoy about Final Fantasy XII. I feel like its characterization is occasionally weak. Like, they could have focused on the main cast more. Because, like... the story being told... I mean, but again, maybe it's just that I'm so, like, endeared to Tales games, which are... I say this a lot. Final Fantasy games are story-based. Tales games are character-based. So, like, Tales games tend to have, like, more flimsy or just kind of okay storylines. And then really great characters in nearly every single one I've ever played. And then Final Fantasy games tend to have, like, really, really interesting stories, but the characters are really more like archetypes. And Final Fantasy XII comes the closest to taking those characters out of their archetypes and making them more relatable and fun, but they're still kind of beyond you.
Yeah,
you know?
I one of the things that's really weak, one of the things that, like, not really weak, but, like, I really noticed, and maybe it's because I play more Tales games or more Persona games, which are character-based, RPGs than I do Final Fantasies, but, like, even comparing it to, say, 7 or 10, like, the one of the biggest, like, foibles is that there's not a lot of interaction within the cast, like, within your main party. They don't quite, like, interact or really form the kind of bonds you would expect, like you would even get in, like, Final Fantasy 7 or 10 or, you know, or even 6 with its massive cast still feels like a bit more, like, the characters are more connected than you would get with 12. And
oh, go ahead.
And so, like, you know, it was hard for me, like, I tried to take notes like we normally do, where we just break down each character individually, and it was hard for me to, like, pinpoint specific things to talk about, because anything you can say about one character kind of also applies about the rest of the cast in general.
Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why Final Fantasy IX tends to, in, like, best of lists, in, like, rational best of lists. I didn't read the Polygon best of list, but apparently it's bullshit, but Polygon doesn't know what they're talking about. Ever.
Well, have you ever really read a top 10 list and been like, yeah, that's right?
There are a few that are, like, definitive, but maybe that's just me. But I mean, like, Polygon especially... unless it's McElroy content, does anybody really care what Polygon has to say? Was it Polygon that put, like, New Super Mario Bros. Wii U, like, on their top Mario games? And it's like... they said it was, like, their best Mario game or something like that, and it was immediately like, wow, I think Kotaku actually knows what they're talking about more than you these days. Really? You're gonna say that? Really? This year when Odyssey came out? Really? Yeah, really, I mean, like, you know, if you had said, like, Galaxy was... this is such a tangent, but whatever. If you had said, like, Galaxy was your best Mario game over, like, Odyssey or whatever, I would have bought it, because Galaxy was so, like, fresh. It felt like a big leap after, you know, like, the ness of Sunshine. It felt like the next big step after, like, 64. And it was beautiful, and it was just all that goodness that you want. So if you had put that at the top, I would have gotten it. But really? New Super Mario Brothers for the Wii U? Yeah, the Wii, not the DS version, which was, like, the start of, like,
the return to form for 2D Mario. Like,
yeah.
Like, the same...
That one?
The same console that put out 3D World, which is the objectively better 4-player co-op Mario.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but anyway.
That's a tangent.
Anyway, yeah, but like, Final Fantasy... No, like, yeah, Final Fantasy 9 does have really good characters, really interesting characters, and it does feel a bit more character-based than other Final Fantasies.
Yeah, it's because Final Fantasy IX's story occasionally doesn't make any goddamn sense, yeah.
And also, it does that thing where it's like, we're gonna focus on these characters now, and it'll just be like, okay, we're abandoning these ones for now.
Sure,
we'll get back
cool.
to them.
I kind of liked that aspect of Final Fantasy IX. It's weird cliffhanger, like the fact that it just kind of like made you deal with cliffhangers in the middle of a JRPG.
You know, like, well,
something I've never had to do before.
The Super Friends narrator is like, meanwhile, thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like when you get to 12, and like 12's story is phenomenal. It's
so
really,
good.
really good, and the characters in it are interesting, and
interesting.
It has a handful of some of the best characters ever, and the problem is that I want to see more of them, and I want them to interact more.
Yeah, because the handful of times that they all do kind of like interact are some of the best moments in the game. Like Vaughn asking how old Fran actually is, and Bosch being like team dad when they get to Arcades, and he's like doting on how great like Vaughn and Pinello are. Like those little moments, and like Fran and Balthier have a fucking secret handshake?
Yeah!
They have a secret handshake, which is like the best thing ever, because she's like super, super old and he's like 23, and like, which is a conversation we're gonna have to have in a minute.
Yeah.
But like they both still have like a secret handshake, and it's like the greatest thing in the world. Those little moments are so much fun, and there's just not enough of them. It's like, here's this big story about, you know, stopping a war and killing this Sephiroth wannabe, and you know, all this stuff. And then I kind of forgot to like do some like really good. I mean, like the characterization is good, but it could just you could push it a little harder. You know,
it's not so much that the characterization like is poor; it's that there just wasn't enough of the good characterization we got.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I kind of mentioned this a little bit, and like thinking about it now, one of the problems I have with the overworld is just how quiet everything is. There's no, like, every character has, like, 3 or 4, like, actual battle grunts.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's about it.
I'm not expecting a Tails game, you know, of them screaming their attacks over and over again, but, like,
right.
You know, Balthier's for instance, is this swashbuckling pirate character, and he's not Errol Flynning it at all, you know?
Yeah, which is such a shame. Okay. This is how repetitive this, like, the battle grunts, which is a good way to put it, gets. When I played that game as a kid, to this day, I still have, like, dreams about the sounds they make during their quickenings.
Yeah!
Like, the little noises. Like, I could, like, pick them out. If you played them without any context, I could be like, I know who that is.
Well, and, like, more to the point, you'd be
much.
like, I know which quickening they're doing.
Yes, because they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same noise with, like, each quickening. I could tell you, like, oh, that's Balthier's second one. It's really, like, that sad. And I don't want to keep saying, like, and in Tales games, but 1, Tales games rule, and 2, nobody does characterization better than fucking Tales games.
And, you know, also, they're the ones that we tend to play more than Final Fantasy, so that's the ones we're comparing them to.
Because they come out more often, Tabata.
Yeah. Nomura. You're still not done with 15.
Yeah. And they're usually finished, Tabata. You're supposed to finish your goddamn video games, Tabata. But yeah, you know, Final Fantasy, like Zestiria, okay? Zestiria is not a good Tales game. It's actually the one Tales game that came out unfinished, imagine that. It's not terribly great. I mean, it's okay. But it still has better characterization than Final Fantasy XII, because, like, it has these really great things called point of interest skits, and it's like, hey, there's a neat giant ruin in the middle of the battlefield. Why don't one of you tell us what it does? And then you kind of get to find out like a little bit about the characters, because there's usually some sort of bickering involved, and then you get to find out a little bit more about like the world, which is super interesting, because even like Tales of Berseria has a super interesting history.
And that history is called Tales of Berseria.
That's amazing. In just a handful of lines of dialogue, you get to find out 2 different sets of information about these characters. How neat is that? And it's so smart that Persona 5 ripped it off in Mementos.
And it's really striking for this. And of course, Persona 5 and Berseria technically came out long after 12, and it's I told you, like, I keep forgetting that 12 is a game that came out, like, 10 years ago.
Yes,
because it looks so good.
I know, but that's the thing.
But like, the overworlds in 12 are so, like, not only expansive,
huge.
And they're huge, and they look so good, but they're, like, every so often, like, very frequently, you'll find, like, a big monument, or, like, here's this ruined, like, gazebo, like, or set of pillars or something, and it's like, oh, is this a thing?
I attack the gazebo.
But it's like, is this like a thing? Like, am I supposed to do something? Oh, it's
you're supposed to just ignore it.
It's just a decoration, and it's like, you could have had a character comment on it. Like, you could have had just like a little text pop up that you can kind of get some more information.
Yeah, it's such a shame. There's just not a lot of that in 12.
Or you know what? Like, actually, this is a really good one, because 12 was in the era of Kingdom Hearts. And,
right.
in a game like Kingdom Hearts, like, that is... Oh, train's coming.
Wow, I did not know that my mic picked it up that well. Okay.
But
I even have the windows closed, so it's just that loud.
But even in Kingdom Hearts 1, like, which came out, I think, way before this, actually, before 12. But, like,
yeah.
When you're in combat, for instance, there's a shift in music. The music goes into a more battle thing, and, like, it's more upbeat, and you kind of get more energetic about it. And when you heal a character or throw an item on a character, they'll thank you for it. And, like, there's just that slight little interaction of, like, calling out a character's name and hearing that character thank you.
Right.
is absent. In 12, when you cast a spell, the spell just goes off, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And even in 10, like, when a character would finish off an enemy, they sometimes would throw out a one-liner. They would have little battle victory quotes or something, and it's like, just little touches like that add to the overall characterization, or add to the overall interaction of these characters, and make them not feel like just puppets that you are making fight to progress. And it's just...
Yeah.
It would have served to help bring these characters more to life, because what we get of them is so good, we want more of it.
Right, and like... We brought up last week the fact that sometimes 12's battle system can feel repetitive or kind of like a slog. You're just, kind of pointing characters in the direction of enemies. If your gambits are set up correctly.
Yeah. And
so, like, a little bit of incidental dialogue just triggered by, oh, new enemy, how about a comment on it? Or, hey, that's an interesting thing in the distance, what is that? Just little tiny, like, bits of dialogue like that. I know the game was already packed to the gills with dialogue, which is why it sounds like it was recorded in a tin can. But, still, even if it was just a text box or something that popped up, that would have helped. To kind of break up the monotony.
Yeah, it adds more life to the game.
Yeah.
And that's what's important, especially with these characters, because...
Especially with this world, because the world itself is very lively and feels very active, but sometimes the characters kind of feel like they're just kind of gliding through it. I don't know.
There's this weird disparity between, like, when you go to a town and you see the town is packed to the gills with people. There are crowds pushing in narrow alleyways. There's vendors shouting at you. There's people cheering. There's characters having little conversations off to the side and, interacting with each other. And then you get to the battlefield and it's just, like,
quiet
and empty except for the enemies and the background music playing. And
yeah,
so it's just that bit could have added more to this.
Yeah, just a little. I mean, just a little bit. Because the rest of 12 is stellar. The story, especially, is just, I don't know. There's something I just really enjoy about 12. I have kind of drifted into the Final Fantasy X hater camp. I know you're not so much as I am.
I mean, I'm not gonna defend it to you.
But yeah. But even 10 did, like, I don't want to say it did characterization better, because I don't like most of those characters. But they were characters.
They had more, and they I feel like they interacted a lot more than the cast of 12 does.
And maybe it's because, like, 10 has the Final Fantasy 13 hallway problem, and the fields between set pieces are smaller. 12 has, like, big, giant, open areas, and they're all tons of, big fields between point A and point B, and there's branching paths and optional bullshit and whatever. So they couldn't, like, it didn't feel as, like, compressed as 10 does.
Yeah.
Because I swear, I think you can beat 10 and 12 in, like, a similar amount of time, but 12 feels like it's 700 times longer,
Yeah, it really does.
Just because there's so much more, like, to do and see and go on. And 12, 10 has got, it's a more compressed story. It's get here, do this,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. It's just that the rest of the story compared to, say, 10, I really, really enjoy, because it feels like way more grown up. Even the, like, kid characters are... The one kid character is the coolest goddamn kid character in anything ever. Can we have that conversation right now, please?
Well, yeah. So let's do it's gonna be short because there's only 6 of them.
Yeah, there isn't. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about. I don't really think the full character breakdown thing is super necessary, but I do want to get off my chest that Larsa is the coolest goddamn kid.
Larsa's the fucking best. That's why he's the title card.
Fucking best. Yes, Larsa is the fucking coolest.
The fucking smoothest dude.
Like, this 12-year-old is so goddamn baller. Like, what is going on? Like, he just waltzes into scene and he's like, what's up? And, like...
No, it's funny, because Larsa is a character that we should hate.
Yeah,
right?
He's a little precocious. He's a precocious kid character.
He's so snobby and, like, arrogant and, like, disdainful, and he just kind of shoves his way into the group, and we should hate him. But
on principle, you should.
But he's so fucking cool.
He's so cool. Because he's never, like, rude. Like, he's kind of, like, he's smart. He's like a know-it-all little kid character that should drive you up a goddamn wall. But, like, instead, he isn't really know-it-all. He's just smart. There's a difference.
He's just, like, competent. And he doesn't go into a situation unless he's prepared for it. And he's just... he's great! I fucking love Larsa!
He doesn't have any of the, like, obnoxious kid character traits. Like, sorry, Carol. He isn't, like, a coward, and he doesn't whine, and he doesn't, like, do bratty things. He's actually pretty smart, and he knows how to play the politics game, and, like, yeah, he's a little naive, but he's 12, so, like, what naivete is there can be excused, because he's 12, and, like, it helps that his voice actor is really, really good.
Oh,
like,
he's real good.
His English voice actor is really good. He has, like, some of the dopest... I don't know. Like, his delivery is so good, and it's, like... Maybe part of it is a little unrealistic, because he's 12, and maybe he shouldn't sound that mature, but you can rationalize it by saying he's just an overeducated... I mean, he's a prince, you know? He's just highly educated. And so he knows how to play the fucking game, and, like, is immediately, like, just, hey girl, what's up, to Pinello, and, like, we don't do, like, the shipping talk, on the Gorge really ever. But it is hilarious how immediately Penelo is just like, oh, okay, I think I'm just gonna let this kid drag me around. This is fine, because it rules.
Yeah.
You know?
Hello?
Did I lose you?
No, I'm good. It's good. It stuttered a bit, but I'm good.
Hold on.
Okay.
Say something.
I'm here.
Cool. Sorry. I gotta get new headphones.
That's okay. Yeah, no, it's great, though.
Yes!
I love it.
Like, Larsa, and he's useful. That's the other thing. He's a kid character who is super useful in the PS2 version. Rip infinite high potion.
In the PS2 version there is, I don't know if it's a glitch or there's just a balancing issue or what, but yeah, when you get him in the Lushu Mines, he has an infinite supply of high potions, which at this point in the game, high potions are expensive for you.
Yeah, they're like the best healing thing you can get. Because they heal so much damage, so you can just grind away in the Lusu Mines after you get Larsa, and just level up for days, you know?
It's great. I love that kid. And he's got a cool sword. His sword looks cool.
He's got a cool sword, and he stands up to his brother, and he just gets all the good. He gets some really great moments, and by the end of it, you're just like, yeah, Larsa, you deserve everything in the world, you know?
Right, exactly. He's the best.
It's so weird, because you're right, we should hate him.
In a game with, like, Balthier and Bosch and Redis, you're like, oh yeah, the 12-year-old's the coolest.
He's the coolest guy. The coolest character is Ash, and I'll fight everybody on planet Earth for the sake of Ashelia, Benark, and Dalmasca. But the coolest dude in Final Fantasy 12 is 12.
Yeah. That's why it's 12. The game is named after him. It's about Larsa. It's Larsa's game.
Named after Larsa.
Final Fantasy Larsa.
Why isn't Larsa the protagonist? How much better of a... I mean, I love Vaughn, I really do, but how much better of a game would it be if it was, like, about, like, Ash and not Penelo, Jesus, too many character names. Ash and Larsa, like, trying to figure out some sort of peace between, like, the Arcades and fucking Dalmasca. How much better would that have been?
That would be great.
That would have been great. Or the game where Bosch was the protagonist, like they were originally planning, and then they chickened out at the last minute. We're like, no, we gotta have the little 16-year-old boy instead. Whatever.
Which is kind of funny to me, because, like, everyone is like, oh yeah, your Final Fantasy game, and you have the teenage boy as your protagonist. Not as often as you'd think.
Yeah,
actually.
It's weird. No, it's super weird, because, like, I guess because Cloud set some sort of weird standard, but he's not a teenager. No. Cloud is 21.
Yeah, Cloud's in his 20s, and he's, like, a vet, and he's not, like, a spunky kid. Locke and Terra aren't spunky kids, or Celeste, or whoever the fucking protagonist of 6 is.
Because nobody knows.
Yeah. Bart's is in his 20s, like...
Cecil is a grown-ass man.
The crew in 1 is whatever the fuck you want him to be.
Yeah, and then you get, like, I guess because of Squall and Zidane, but nobody likes Squall. Literally nobody. And, like, I guess Zidane? But then, like, Titus came along, and nobody really likes Titus.
And he's in his 20s anyway, so, like...
No, he's not. Titus is, like, 18.
Is he?
Yeah, I think. We have to Google that. Because I think he's not that much older than Yuna, and Yuna's, like, 17 or something, right?
Either way, but, like, you know...
Anyways, he's still, like, he's, like, youngish, so it's kind of like... It's a weird thing to assume that's a precedent, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know why they chickened out of the whole Bosch as protag thing. Maybe because the protagonist having a evil twin is too cliche.
Maybe. There is one thing I kind of want to do just to, like, touch on each of the party members briefly. Because 12 is Star Wars.
12 is Star Wars.
I want to put, like, our breakdown in the context of which Star Wars character are the party members.
Yeah, Vaughn is Luke.
Yeah, you can do it. Like, Vaughn is Luke. Balthier's Han Solo.
Right.
Fran is Chewbacca.
Fran is the sexy Chewbacca, for sure. For sure. Fran even is canonically like a bow user. I mean, like, not technically a bow user, but she's always shown with a bow.
Yeah.
And Chewbacca has a fancy crossbow, so,
No, I learned this. This is interesting, actually. Balthier and Fran are most often shown with guns and bows, right?
Right.
It's their signature weapons. They have special animations with them. Because they have special animations with them, they are actually the worst characters to use those specific weapons because they do less DPS.
What?
Their animation, Balthier's animation for firing the gun takes a little bit longer than everyone else in the party.
Oh my god.
And same for Fran with her bow.
Well, I still give them bows and guns anyway.
Well, yeah.
Because there's after a certain point, it's that thing in, like, other video games where you're like, this armor has plus 20 defense. It's also way uglier. I'm sticking with the other one, you know?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But yeah, I just...
After a certain point. No, I think that's amazing. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Bosch is a little tricky.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I'm going to say Obi-Wan, but I'm going to say prequel Obi-Wan.
Yes.
Because he doesn't die in the beginning.
No,
and he still has hope.
He's like the team, but he is team mentor dad thing.
Yeah, but so is Obi-Wan in the prequels. He was the mentor to Anakin. Yeah. He just did bad at it.
He's just really terrible at it, you know? He's just saved by the fact that he's played by Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I buy that.
Ash is Leia, obviously.
That's easy. That one's super easy. And then there's Penelo.
Yeah, now that's the one I'm really curious about. Who is Penelo?
Penelo is nobody, and that's kind of tragic because it also applies to the plot mostly.
Yeah.
Sorry, Penelo, because I actually, like, adore Penelo, but Penelo might have less reason to be there than Vaughn. And like, Vaughn doesn't have a lot of reason to be there.
Like, Lando?
No.
No.
Like an Ewok.
No. What is? No,
I like Penelo a whole hell of a lot more than I like Ewok.
No, she's Vaughn's childhood friend, so she is Biggs.
She's Biggs.
Yeah,
sure. Is there a Biggs and Wedge in 12? Because I feel like that's too on the nose if there is.
I don't think there are a Biggs and Wedge in 12.
Okay, that's good because that's too obvious.
Actually,
anyways, we all know that Redis is Lando.
Yeah, Redis is Lando, duh, obviously.
Redis is Lando, yeah, of course. So obvious.
There are a Biggs and Wedge in 12.
Who are they?
But they are. I'm checking right now. I'm pulling up the wiki page, the Final Fantasy wiki page for Biggs and Wedge. Honestly, by the way, I love the Final Fantasy wiki. Because it's the only game wiki I've ever seen that actually puts, like, strategy...
in the page?
Yeah, in the page.
Except it's, like, really, because it's so comprehensive, and Wikia, like, the Wikia framework sucks dick, it loads like dog shit.
Yeah.
It, like, loads... For me, consistently, it loads like dog shit.
Okay. Okay, so Biggs and Wedge in 12 are actually Gibbs and Deweg.
Fuck off!
They are Arcadian soldiers guarding the entrance to the Mosforan High Waste at Nalbina.
Fuck off.
You can cheat. You have to get past them by riding a chocobo because Gibbs hates chocobos.
Oh my god. Amazing.
Yeah, so that's
whatever.
So they are in there. That's great.
Amazing. But yeah, no, Penelo is, I guess, Biggs. Sure,
she's
poor
Biggs
Penelo.
Darklighter. Yeah, let's talk about that because that's like I don't really have much to say about Penelo, which I feel really bad for.
Because I like Penelo. Like, when she is doing, like, when she's talking, her voice actor is good, her characterization is good, but it's kind of like, why are you here?
It feels like Penelo's there because they're like, we can't have 5 party members. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it has to have an even split of gender.
Yeah.
You know? And it's kind of like, I guess Penelo is there because she keeps getting accidentally wrapped up in this shit, and after a certain point, I'm sure she's like, if I try to break away from you people, something will drag me back in anyways, so I might as well just keep hanging out with you. Because literally the reason she gets dragged into the story is because she was seen standing next to Balthier.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
And then she gets kidnapped because of that, and then she's like, well, I guess this is my life now.
And she's like, this sucks, and then, she tries to leave the Lusu mines because she just wants to go the fuck home, and like immediately gets grabbed by the Imperials. And it's like, oh, Penelo, I'm so sorry. She just wants to go home, man.
She's a lot like Black Mage in 8-bit theater, because there is a running like a low-key running joke of him trying to break away from the party. And then situations occur where he just ends up in their midst again anyway.
That's totally what it is.
Yeah.
Poor Penelo. Yeah, like, Penelo is the one I have the least to say about, which, again, is a shame, because I like her, you know? Mm-hmm. That's the thing about all these characters is I really like all of them, but I don't have a lot to say about, like, half of them.
Yeah. You know, for one thing, like, I wrote down the notes, like, for Fran... Like, Fran's great, but, like, and the Viera are really interesting.
Right.
Can we learn more about them?
Can we learn more about, like, Fran?
Like,
more than, like, she left the woods, like, a billion years ago? And that's it?
Fran left. Okay, did she get in a fight? Like...
why did she leave?
She's, like, insistent that she can never go back. Like, she can't hear the mist or the what's it?
The wood.
Yeah, she can't hear
the green word.
Yeah,
is what they technically refer to it as.
And okay, why? How?
Why? Just because she was gone for too long? Why did she leave in the first place? How did she meet Balthier? Why is she hanging out with this 23-year-old shit? Like. What? Can we get, like, a little bit more characterization for her? Because when Fran opens her mouth, beauty pours out because her accent is incredible. But can we get, like, a little bit more? Like, just a little bit more?
A little bit. Like, just...
Please?
Just some stuff. A little bit.
A bit more of a hint about, like, what she's like as a person? Like, what does she like? What does she dislike? Why is she hanging out with Balthier? What does she get from all of this? Is it just because she likes hanging out with Balthier? I mean, that's cool, but can we get a few more scenes of them, like, interacting as, like a duo? Instead of, like, the occasional fist bump and Balthier making a sex joke about her not liking being tied up, which I liked, and that was funny.
Like, they only have, like, a few scenes where, like, there's a scene where they talk about, or Balthier, like, or she, like, immediately pinpoints that Balthier does not like the Nethicite, and he's hiding his disdain for it.
Because he's hiding something about it.
Yeah.
Because of backstory reasons.
Yeah, and, like, she immediately pinpoints that, and, like, that's good. Can we get more of it?
Can we have a few more scenes like that between them? We have that one really funny scene where they are in a bar in Rabanastre, and they're bitching about the fact that they keep getting dragged into shit, which is kind of the story of this game. And that's, like, a really funny scene, because they have, like, a fun, like, back and forth rapport, which is what you want in your game about people. You want those people to interact and have really interesting interactions.
So that,
do you get it?
When the game is over and they're like, we're friends now, you can believe it.
Yeah. Because, like, you almost sell me on it.
This is one of those games where, like, normally in a JRPG... Like, when the game is over, you imagine that the crew continues to hang out with each other, you know?
Or see each other occasionally,
yeah.
You know?
But in 12, where it's like, Penelo writes a letter, and she's like, yeah, we haven't really seen each other in forever. It's like, in this game, it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
I guess it does technically make sense, because Ash is a queen, and Larsa is an emperor, and Bosch is off pretending to be Noah, and, like... Fran and Balthier are still technically wanted, and so, like, they can't really hang out. But, like, I don't know, you still want to get some kind of sense that these people were all friends, and the game almost sells me on it in a few places. Their little pep talk for Ash in the final dungeon is, like, really good. Like, that whole scene is super, super good. Could we get, like, 20 more of those?
Yeah, can we, like, you know, Balthier has a conversation with Ash about vengeance and all that. And
Right.
Vaughn, I love Vaughn's, like, needling of Ash to be like,
Yeah. You're gonna do the right thing,
yeah,
right?
hey,
we're gonna do the right thing.
We're gonna not use the ultimate super weapon, right? Right?
Yeah, I like Vaughn's act. Because, see, okay, a lot of people have a problem with Final Fantasy XII and the fact that you play as Vaughn, but, like, the main characters are Bosch and Ash and Balthier, right? But you're playing as Vaughn. That's, like, weird. But that's fine, because lots of books do that, and lots of other forms of media do that. The person that the story follows is not technically the protagonist all the time, you know? Like, that's kind of what The Great Gatsby is. Not to compare Final Fantasy XII to The Great Gatsby, but maybe to compare Final Fantasy XII to The Great Gatsby a little bit. The Great Gatsby is about Gatsby, and it's about, like, Nick interacting with Gatsby and learning things about himself through his interactions with Gatsby, which is kind of what's going on with Vaughn and Balthier a little bit, you know what I mean? So, like, I don't have a problem with that aspect of Final Fantasy XII, the way a lot of people do, but, like, Nick still has, like, a character.
Yeah, there's just,
you know?
There's an absence of, like, really, really, really strong characterization, and, like, I like Vaughn a lot, because Vaughn is a good twist on the sort of, like, tag-along kid role. Mm-hmm. And, like, because he's pretty smart, and he's, you know, crafty, and the rest of the party doesn't treat him with, like, any disdain, or, like, treat him like a follow-along, like a tag-along, or, you know, like a follower.
Yeah. Like, you know, we were joking when you were playing the game that Balthier and Fran kind of, like, immediately adopt this little shit kid as their apprentice sky pirate, and that's pretty great, you know?
Yeah, but continue.
But yeah, like, more of that. More scenes where, like Fran, like, at one point, one of my favorite little, like, short bits is in, I think, when they're escaping the Leviathan? It's either the Leviathan or the Shiva. I can't remember which one. But they're escaping one of the dreadnoughts, and Vossler mentions that he's stolen an Atomos, which is like a little small, like a little skiff. And that's exactly what Balthier says. He says, an Atomos, that's more skiff than ship. It's hardly fit for a leading man. And then Vaughn goes, so does that mean I can fly? And then Franz says, you must be mad. And that was like a fun little character interaction moment. It's kind of like a kid asking mom and dad, can I drive the car? And they're both like, hell no, you can't drive our car. And then they would have been, like, really cool if to, like, help characterize both Vaughn and Fran. Fuck! So my other problem with this game is a lot of the names have, like, really similar sounds, because there's Vaughn and Fran and Bosch and Ash. Help. But it would have been great if there was, like, a little moment where at one point Fran was like, hey, this is how you fly the straw. I'm going to show you how to do it, because I'm cool like that, and Balthier doesn't want you to learn how to fly, but I do. And that would have been, like, a moment, you know, of interaction between characters, which is nice.
Which is important in a game like this.
Yeah. But it's fine, because I really like the overarching plot.
No.
So I still really like Final Fantasy XII.
No, and that's what makes it really interesting, is because it's like this whole socio-political conflict going on. There's so much lore and, like not to the extent of, like, Abyss or Berseria, but, like, the way that like, characters like Andor, or, like, this game opens with a political marriage, and the husband dies in combat immediately, and, like, that's... You could make a whole thing about that, and that's, like... That's how you start the story.
Yeah, and I think... I don't know, I guess part of it you could almost... Now, this is probably me bullshitting a little for the sake of Final Fantasy XII, because this is a game I swear by. You could almost make the argument that the characterization is kind of weak, because, like, the individual characteristics of these people and their small-time problems is dwarfed by the immediacy and bigness of, like, a looming war and the domination via the Empire. Like, you know, you could kind of make that argument, but, like, that really is more of, like, a bullshit thing. Like, I admit that's, like, me bullshitting just a little bit for the sake of Final Fantasy XII, because I really like Final Fantasy XII. But the story that's getting told is super, super interesting, because it's about these big political things, and the machinations of, like, the Imperial Senate, and the Rosarian Empire, and what happens when this is really applicable even to today, what happens to the little countries caught between the Cold War of two huge empires? Like, that still feels pretty like a thing that's going on in the news right now. And it's 2017, and this game came out in 2006. Like, that stuff is still, like, tonally resonant with the world, and those feel like big things, you know, because if this empire and this empire go to war, then all of those little empires that are in the middle get turned into ash, and that includes Dalmasca, which is super interesting, because it's like...
Well, you don't get that in your JRPGs a lot. You get,
It's usually like you're like the representative of one country trying to prevent a war with the other, but not like as one of, like, the little border countries, you know?
Yeah, and or, you know, your plot is about a looming evil that threatens the entire world, and maybe there's a subplot about the Empire using an evil magic or whatever, but the true villain of your standard JRPG is going to be some sort of unearthly being, and not the head of the army. Not the guy, like, you think about, like, even something like Vesperia, which is a more political game than other Tales games, and the leader of the evil army is the sub-boss, and he's not the final boss.
Yeah, that's why Vesperia is such a disappointment in its third act, is because it took all that cool, like, political crap that was going on, and then forgot about it. Whoops.
And, like, you get this villain, like, you get a villain like Vayne, who is maybe not the strongest villain ever, but, like, you get frustrated because he keeps getting away with more and more stuff.
Yeah, because it's like the Senate is, you know, like, they can't do anything, and the army, again, this is actually all pretty, like, relevant shit right now, but, like... And just in general, like, it maybe part of what makes Final Fantasy XII work so well, like, when Final Fantasy XII works, it really, really works, because it's drawing from actual historical shit. Like, the things that happen when the Emperor dies, where it's like, well, the Emperor is dead, long live the Emperor, I'm going to, you know, institute these, like, wartime powers and strip the Senate of all of its authority, and I'm going to assume control, and because the military loves a good war, they're going to side with the guy who's going to start them a good-ass war. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like, you know, that whole scene is great, because I was texting you about it when I was going it, where it's like, Vayne's like, oh no, Emperor Gramus is dead! Looks like I have to take charge!
What?
And the judges are like, Vayne, is that a vial of poison in your hand? Is that your sword covered in the Emperor's blood?
Blood? No, it's fine.
And he's like, we'd better find out who did this.
Yeah, no, it's even more ridiculous than that, because poor Geese... No, it's Drace. Excuse me. Judge Drace is the only female judge.
Yeah.
And poor Drace immediately gets the shaft, because it's still a Final Fantasy game. And poor Drace immediately gets shit on, because, like, literally the way the scene goes down, it's intentionally supposed to be the most bullshit thing on Earth, because Drace and Gabranth come walking in, and there's the dead Emperor, and there's his dead assassin, in finger quotes, and, like, you know, Vayne says something like, the assassin took his life after poisoning the Emperor, and then, like, immediately Drace is like, that's bullshit, this is bullshit, fuck you, and, like, and it's, like, the best scene, because it's so obviously a setup, right? Like, if you have a functioning brainstem, you have to know it's a setup. But then everybody immediately turns on Drace because they all want a fucking war, right?
Yeah.
So they're all totally fine with it. They don't care that Gramus is dead. They are glad that Vayne is in charge now, because now Vayne, who can, like, dissolve the Senate and make himself the sole power in the Empire, can, like, give them their war. And so they're willing to say, like, yes, the Emperor is the law, and as a representative of the law, which is what judges are in Arcades, like, they are, like, the physical embodiment of law, like, you know, Drace is now breaking the law, which means she has to be executed, and they make poor Gabranth do it. I mean, that's a really good scene.
An amazing scene, and it just shows you, like, how, like, you are not up against a guy who is really strong, you know? You're not up against, like, Sephiroth is a guy who has amassed tons of power. He is physically mighty, and he has, like, unwieldy magic powers.
Right.
Vayne is not he becomes a strong individual, but, like, as he is right now, he's not physically powerful. But he's manipulative, and he's charming, and he can give the people in charge what they want.
Right. And that's really what matters. And that almost feels like a bigger hurdle to surmount than just a guy in the Northern Crater who's going to blow everything up with a meteor.
Yeah, because, you know you are... this is a game where, like, you are playing... Like, Ash is leading the resistance, and it's like... In order to do a good resistance like this, you can't just fight conflicts like this. The way the game is set up is that you can't just do... Like, you cannot overpower them. You have to convince them to join your side, or you have to convince the people that what they're doing is wrong.
Right.
And when Vayne has amassed this much power and this much influence over, you know, the people who make the decisions, like, you can't win.
Yeah, it feels like kind of hopeless. And, you know, I think the third act of the game kind of does lose a little, like, some of those threads, because it does become about, like, the Ocuria and blah-de-blah-de-blah. But it kind of had to, because it's still a Final Fantasy game at the end of the day. And I still think that shit's pretty interesting.
Well,
so it's fine.
Even with the Ocuria, like, I love it, because, like, you get that scene with the Ocuria where, like, Ash goes, like, she is taken to see them, and they're like, here's this big sword, go murder everyone. Like, you need, like, they're, like, insistent, like, you need to go and stab every motherfucker you can with this sword. And Ash is like, that doesn't sound right.
That sounds like the wrong way to go about things. But then every now and then, like, the game is about the lore of power and, like, the seductive nature of power.
Oh, you mean like the dark side of the Force?
Yeah, yeah, shut up. I was trying to avoid that. Shut up, Obi-Wan! Leave me alone, Yoda!
Ash was seduced by the dark side of the Force.
The Force. It's actually a pretty good Obi-Wan impression.
Well, you know, also the simple fact, we have to say it right now, all the judges are Darth Vader. I mean... All
of the judges are just different Darth Vaders.
Oh, you mean they wear all black armor with long flowing capes and unique helmets? Oh, I wonder what your influence for these designs were.
It's amazing because, like...
You mean the puppets of the Emperor all wear all black armor with face-concealing masks and are powerful swordsmen?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Final Fantasy XII did the Knights of Ren before The Force Awakens did the Knights of Ren. It's amazing. And yeah, no, all of the judges are great except for, like, the one asshole one who, I think it's either Zagorba or Bergen. I can't remember which one because they all kind of, like, blur together.
All those names are so complicated.
Oh my god, see if you can name every single fucking judge. It's Jesus. It's Zagorba, Gabranth, Geese, Drace, and Bergen. Yeah, get fucked. I think that's all of them. One of them is a bigger... I know, right? Jesus, I'm tired just thinking about all of that. And one of them is a complete asshole, and I think it was Zagrebath, but I can't remember, I'm sorry. But, like, the rest of them are kind of interesting, because, like, the judges themselves are a little bit morally gray. Especially, like, Drace, and especially Gabranth, who actually ends up being a super good character by the end of it, like Darth Vader.
Yeah, Gabranth is the real Darth Vader out of all the Darth Vaders.
He's just the Darth Vaderiest of the Darth Vaders. That's all it is. And he ends up being pretty compelling because, like, he's very, like, fuck my brother, and I don't care about what happened to Landis, which is their homeland. And, you know, I'm just here to serve the Empire. And you're like, man, that's a dick move. But then he's like, but I'm actually here to protect the Empire, and Vane is bad for the Empire, so I want to protect Larsa specifically. And then you're like, hold on, I thought you were an asshole. You are an asshole. But you're like a good asshole? What? And that's Final Fantasy XII doing it right. Like, when Final Fantasy XII does it right, it does it really, really right. Because that's, like, a good, weird morality thing, where it's like, you did a bad thing, but you also have, like, good intentions sometimes?
And it creates a nice parallel with, like, Bosch and Ash, actually, where one of Bosch's, like, nobility, like, points of nobility about him, like, one of his compelling characters, is that he is completely willing to sell out all of his pride, all of his honor and respect for the sake of restoring order and peace. Yeah. He will throw himself under the bus. He will jump right under that bus at a moment's hesitation. Right. And you also have Ash, who is seriously thinking about, let's be honest, the nuclear option.
Right.
If it means that, you know, there will be peace afterward.
Yeah, if she can restore Dalmasca to its glory and get peace, and I mean, yeah, punish the Empire, because it is kind of a, you know, you victimized me in a pretty major way because I loved my husband.
And she even has her husband's ghost telling her to do it.
Yeah, which is just the Okuria being super, super evil.
Super dicks.
That's a big dick move, but it's pretty good when you think about it from a writing standpoint.
And it works on her, is the thing. For a long time, it really works on her.
And I mean, like, you can't blame her, because it's like, you know, you get that one really good scene, and again, when Final Fantasy XII does characterization, it does it very, very well, because there's that really great scene from before Ash was hardened to, like, the horribleness of the world, you know, when she was just, like, a princess in love with Rassler. And there's that nice scene where they're both like, you know, people think our marriage is political, and maybe it is a little, but I'm happy to play the part with you. And you're like, oh, that's a moment, you know? And it's like, oh, she really loved him. And now it's like the Empire did this fucked up thing, and now, you know, you have the opportunity, because Dalmasca is a small nation, you have the opportunity to strike back as a small nation and take revenge, where before that was basically impossible because of the size of Dalmasca. But now she has that opportunity, and it's like power whispering in her ear. Yes, the dark side, you don't have to say it. You know, there's power right there, right within your grasp, and you could really do something.
It's really great because early on, Vaughn is seeing it too, and Vaughn, as your protagonist, is the character you're supposed to relate to and kind of, like, agree with. Like, you know, we talked about this with Tales games, where I mentioned this a few times, where it's like, if you're ever wondering, like, which side of a morally gray issue you're kind of, quote-unquote, supposed to lean towards, it's usually the one the protagonists are doing.
Right.
Like, whatever, they might not be happy about it, but, like, you're kind of supposed to lean towards what the heroes are doing, you know, with these kind of, like, gray issues, like whether or not to take your revenge. And by Vaughn seeing, not Rassler, but Rex in his case, but still seeing the ghost, like, along with Ash, initially is like, okay, well, yes, this clearly is something that we can trust, because it's two separate characters seeing it, which means it's not likely to be, like, a hallucination or, like, a trick. You know, there might be something here. And then, as it progresses, you know, Vaughn doesn't mention it at first, but, like, he stops seeing Rex while she's still seeing Razzler, and
Right.
that's when you're like, okay, there's something wrong here.
Yeah, there's something wrong because after a certain point, Vaughn says to Ash, like, yeah, I've kind of given up on wanting revenge on the Empire because I realize... And that's why Vaughn is actually a pretty compelling character. I complain, but Vaughn is actually a pretty interesting guy.
Yeah.
He says, I've kind of given up on wanting revenge on the Empire because I realize it's more complicated than that. And it's not so... You can't make the hurt stop just because you killed a bunch of dudes. And he kind of has that realization where Ash is still struggling with it. And but that's partly because, in the grand scheme of things, she's lost a significant more. Vaughn lost his only family, but Ash lost, like, her whole kingdom and her identity as, like, a princess and the person she loved and all of this stuff, So she's grappling with a larger scope of loss.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what makes it... those are the moments that make this game so compelling and perfect.
Yeah, that conversation in the fucking Garif village where they're on the bridge together, like her and Vaughn, and he's trying to convince her to go to Baramases, is like a really good scene because he's like, listen, it's not that simple. Like, you kind of have to want peace. Yeah. And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, can we just try?
Yeah, the way they do it, I think, is really, really good. And it's kind of like it's kind of like a good example of like the kind of characterization and interaction we could have had throughout the whole game, where like Vaughn doesn't do it through like a dramatic speech. He doesn't try to convince her with like like there's not like the scene where he talks her into it. It's every time she tries to bring it up, he kind of butts his way in to like her thing. Like he even does interrupt one of her monologues at one point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna do it, right?
Yeah, like he's not trying to. He's trying to just keep her on the right path, and that's like a really strong bit of interaction between the two of them that I really, really liked. And every time it came up, I was really endeared to it.
Yeah, and I think part of it is because of like I think the reason why the game ultimately, what I said, like, I don't know why Penelo is there, and, like, maybe we could have had a different protagonist that isn't Vaughn. But ultimately, I think the game succeeds with what it has because, we have all these highborn characters, or characters who are basically nobles. You've got, Balthier and Ash and Bosch, and they're all, and, like, Fran kind of exists, or did exist for a very long time outside of like that world. So to have two members of the cast, which is, a third of the cast, because it's only 6 people, to have 2 members of the cast be like lowborn and like normal street people, it makes sense why, even though Vaughn is like has been clearly victimized by the Empire in the same way that Ash has, why Vaughn comes around to it and is like, you're not going to take the nuclear option, because Vaughn knows better than Ash knows, because Ash exists in a different world than him, what, like, a war does to the little people. Yeah. Like, more so than what it does to, like, the rich. Like, the wealthy, a war doesn't really affect them as much as it does, like, the little people who enlist to protect their countries and stuff, which is maybe too real right now. But, Vaughn understands that if Ash does this thing and takes revenge on the Empire, then a lot of normal people like himself will be, like, victimized and orphaned the way, like, Penelo was, and the way he was, and the way, like, all the kids he hangs out with in Rabanastre were. And that's, that's really good. That's why he kind of comes around to it sooner, is because he understands, like, there's a more emotional thing at stake here.
It's really interesting, too, because, like, they both have loved ones they lost in the same war. Rex and Razzler both died in the same battle. Or not the same battle, but the same war on the same side. And
no, they died. I think they died on the same night. So they did die. You're
right. Yeah.
No. Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, so like, and it's just great to see like 2 different opinions of that, because Razzler went because it was his duty as the prince, and he needed to be a strong leader. And Rex did it because they needed the money.
Yeah, and it's just, he's a foot soldier.
And
that was his order. It wasn't about duty and honor and all that stuff.
Yeah, and, and it kind of reflects, for Ash, she is taking revenge because it was someone she loved, but also because he was an important leader and a symbol of their country. And, Vaughn even has that bit where he's like, my brother's dead. This isn't going to fix anything.
Yeah.
And it's...
Yeah.
Of course, the way he said it, this is a side note, but, he said, my brother is dead, he's not here anymore. And my brain autocorrected to, but on my back and in my heart, he continues to live on inside of me. And I was like...
Because we're both fucking weebs.
I was like, really, brain? Really? Still?
Really?
It's been 10 years.
No, Gurren Lagann will never, ever leave you alone, ever. Besides, that moment is one of the best in, any show ever.
Oh, it's great.
It's fine.
But yeah,
man.
it was great to have, that two different, reactions to the same event, basically.
Yeah, to the same pain. And to deal with it. And eventually Ash does come around to doing the right thing, and it works out, and it's nice.
And it feels earned, because, we saw her struggle with it in a very real way, and, she wasn't talked down, in a big dramatic speech. It was something that Vaughn just kept course-correcting her when it looked like she was going to go the wrong way.
Right, and that's way more compelling to have it be like a struggle. It's the dark side trying to lure you over. It's something you have to really fight against and tell yourself you're not going to do the wrong thing, and that's way more compelling and way more real than a big moment. It's just more human, and that's what we mean when we say when Final Fantasy XII does characterization right. It does it very, very right.
Yeah, it was. I'm just gonna say it because it's true. It was the scene where Luke throws his lightsaber away and says, "I am a Jedi like my father before me." That is what it was. I'm sorry. There are so many scenes in 12 that are just shot for shot from Star Wars.
They're just perfect analogs of those moments.
The ending of the game is just the ending of Return of the Jedi. You are infiltrating the Death Star to confront the Emperor, and he turns into a gross monster face. and I even said to you, okay, if Gabranth throws Vayne off the side of the railing, I don't know what I'll do.
At the gate, you gotta turn the game off. This is I'm done, I gotta take a break. I gotta have a moment.
Because I'm wait, he's getting up, he's gonna go, he's challenging Vayne. Is it gonna...
Are we going there?
And they were on an elevated platform, so they could have done it.
You could have done it. Falling to your death is incredibly Star Wars, and I was just waiting for it. No, they managed to avoid doing that, but not much else. Not much else. They definitely want to just keep on riffing on Star Wars, which is fine. It worked out in their favor. It's super interesting.
Yeah, because you know what? It was fun, and it's not the first Final Fantasy to do that. 6 is just Star Wars too.
Yeah, 6 is just Star Wars as well, for sure.
But
half of Final Fantasy is just Star Wars.
Basically, yeah. That's why Biggs and Wedge show up everywhere.
Yeah.
But, I do want to talk about for a minute, just, hey, how fucking cool was Vayne's final form? That was fucking...
Boy, the Undying looks pretty fucking rad.
You get a lot of, Sephiroth, One-Wing Angel, the angelic, pure form of the final boss,
right.
Where he kind of looks humanoid, but is still very powerful looking. You never get one where he makes his form by ripping his own ship apart and strapping parts of his ship to himself.
Turning into a weird, radical, evil robot dude thing, and he doesn't even have a health bar. You just kind of have to keep hitting him and praying. Yeah, that whole, like, bit is really, really good. Shout out to, like, the best part of the ending when Fran is like, you know, Balthier rescues Fran, and you're just like, yes.
Yes!
This part's so good. That whole part's so good. Not to get into too much shipping talk, but,
no,
you know.
But
I played that game when I was 16, alright? So shut up.
Yeah.
I have my moments.
Now, speaking of villains, though, we've got to talk for a bit about Sid.
Sidolphus is the raddest dude.
He's a really cool villain, and he is way more villainous than Vane, because, man, you see where Balthier got it from.
All that drama. Boy, I wonder where he learned it.
All them grand hand gestures, all that strutting about, the grand speeches.
Talking. Oh yeah, for sure. It's very obvious where Balthier learned how to Balthier.
Yeah.
And, you know, I when I was thinking about it, I was like, man, you know, Sid is drastically underutilized in the game, which is such a shame. He doesn't have a lot of scenes in the game, but it kind of works too, because, like, Sid doesn't work as a final boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He works as like a quirky side boss guy instead of like a final boss dude, because he kind of is there as like an offset to Vane's deadly seriousness.
Yeah,
Vane, who never cracks a fucking smile.
Yeah, Vane is very much more the very serious threat, and Sid is there to get your hammy monologues and your big fun villain type, and it works. Exactly. It works really well because, again, like all the other characters, Sid's really compelling and interesting, and his writing is super good when he gets going.
Oh yeah, oh man, all of his speeches are the best, and he's just like he's got like an old dad bod, but he carries around like a minigun,
and
that's awesome.
Pulls it out of nowhere.
He just yanks a minigun out of nowhere, and it's awesome.
Sid, what's your final attack? I shoot them with a gun.
It's so great. Like, that's his like limit break, is I shoot them with a minigun. And he has like all the really good lines, like history back in the hands of man is such a good like line, because it's you kind of feel it. You're like, yeah, history back in the hands of man, and then you think about it for like 5 minutes. You're like, boy, that's really, really ominous.
Yeah, that's creepy.
That's ominous, boy. What you planning? And like Vana is like a cool thing, like his weird relationship with an Okuria, and
yeah, exactly.
Like, it drove Balthier's dad insane. That's fine. I really like the interactions between Balthier and Sid. I don't know. I like kind of the weird. Balthier doesn't really get too smarmy with. I mean, he has his little comments calling him old man and stuff, but there is like an actual emotion there beyond just Balthier's smugness.
Yeah, well, you get, you see him kind of drop that flippant sort of persona when he's around Sid, and
yeah.
Again, it's one of those things where, like, I could have gone for more about them.
Yeah,
but
there was, like, that one good scene between him and Ash on the beach, on the Fawn Coast. I think it was on the way to the Grief Village. I can't remember.
No, it was way after that.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
But they have that great scene where with the rings, and, he talks about, like, how he kind of it's the first time he reveals that, like, Sid is his dad, and he's like, oh, my father lost his mind, and, he made me be a judge, and it was, like, and he ran away from it, he cowered it out, he ran away, and, like, that whole scene is really good. Couldn't we have gotten a few more of those?
Yeah. Really, just
a few more.
That's what it really boils down to, is that the stuff outside of the protagonist, the political stuff, the discussions you get. It's funny, a lot of this game is watching old guys in a room sit and talk.
but it's super compelling.
It's really compelling, and you get a lot of, like, tension between them, and it's, you know, because every word they say can have huge consequences for some group of people somewhere.
Right. And they've fleshed out this world so much that you actually kind of care about what happens to the people in the world, because, like, oh, this world is really compelling. Oh no, bad things are happening to it. Oh no! You know, like when Baromeses is attacked, that's like a pretty big moment, because you're like, oh man, this is a cool place, and I don't want bad shit to happen to it.
And it's full of refugees.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, oh, this is a fucked up moment where, like, refugees who are walking in the snow trying to find a place to be safe are, you know, their one, like, safe haven is attacked, and that's fucked up, and, like, because they've managed to make the world itself actually compelling, you care, you know?
Yeah, you are, like, horrified at this, and it's great.
Really tragic. Oh, it's so good.
That's you know, and it's just like,
fucking game is so good.
You know, and it's like we could have had character writing on par with this, you know, like.
And when the game kind of lets itself breathe and have those character moments, they're handled extremely well.
Yeah, that's the thing is that, like, you know, none of what I can say about, like, the character writing is, like, there's never a point where, like, oh, this scene wasn't handled well, or, like, this part of the game was kind of dull, where it's like, the biggest problem is that there just wasn't enough, which is weird to say about a game that can take you, like, 90 hours to beat, but, you know.
It's fine. Like, you know, we just needed more little moments to kind of build toward, like, this sense that you know these people and these people know each other, so that way you feel more invested. And I'm still invested in the plot of Final Fantasy XII, make no mistake, but it just needed to be pushed a little bit further, because what you got is really, really good. And I just wanted more of it.
Yeah, you know, you get a lot of games, especially big games like RPGs, and any, you know, Western or Japanese, where it's like you're either really good at character scenes or you're really good at overarching plots. You know, Tales and Persona are good examples of that. They're really, really good at characters, and sometimes the plots can be a little iffy. You know, but it's like you can point to flaws in the plots of these games. Like, you can point to the third act of Vesperia. You can point to kind of like the latter parts of Persona 5. You know,
yeah, you can point to the fact that, you know, I joke a lot. Persona 4 doesn't actually have a plot.
Yeah.
It just has, you know, moments.
It's really almost impressive that the worst we can say about 12 is that it just didn't have enough of the really good character writing that it has.
Yeah, that's its major problem, is that I just wanted more. It's not that... Yeah. Like, I can't think of really a scene in 12 where the character writing is bad. You know? Like, it's all good, it's just lacking. And that's the problem, that's the part that sucks.
Yeah, and that's just what makes it... you okay?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. There was I had like a little moment there with my audio. But yeah, no, I was hearing you. Carry on.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying, like, yeah, you know, and that's like a really high mark for Final Fantasy XII's favor, is that, like, the worst we can say is we just didn't get enough of it. And, like, I said this last time, and I really do think that, like, any fan of JRPG or any fan of Final Fantasy, and they might have missed this game or, like, brushed it off, like, give it a chance.
Yeah, try it out. You will be surprised by how much you end up liking it, because it's flawed, especially in, like, the combat system department. It is flawed. It's not perfect, but boy, when it's good, like when it's on, it's like really, really on point. You know?
Yeah. It when it works really well. I wish I could find it, because there was an old webcomic I saw that was talking about Final Fantasy XII. And, like, the best thing, like all I remember is from this one panel where it's, like, showing, like, a scene from the combat, and the character, like, the author avatar analog is saying, boy, this really works! And that's, like, if you were to sum up Final Fantasy XII in, like, one sentence, it would be, like, a surprised reaction of, hey, this really works!
Yeah, that's it. That is Final Fantasy XII in a nutshell. Because yeah, it is all incredibly functional, and it's funny. Final Fantasy XII is the definition of greater than its individual parts.
Oh,
like
for
the
sure.
sum is, yeah. Like if you take each individual part of 12, it's like, well, the overworld is kind of empty, and the characterization is a little weak, but there's a good plot. But again, the characterization is a little weak, and the combat system is occasionally dull. And the upgrading system is weird. Like the license board, as we all agree, is weird, no matter what. But then you put it all together, and it's greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah. That's... Yeah, like, that's... I don't know what else really to say besides... Fuck, this game is really worth...
Give it a shot.
It's worth your time. It's. I don't know if it won't be your favorite RPG. I don't know if it'll be your favorite. I don't know if you'll love it as much as like you would a conventional JRPG if that's your thing. But like, it's one of those things where like it's worth branching out and trying something new.
And it is on sale on the PSN right now.
Yeah. So now is
the
up.
Zodiac. If you have PS Plus. I think it's like $30 right now, maybe less, $25 maybe. You should get it and give it a shot. That's the gist of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's final. That I mean, like I have more-ish to say, but I feel like that kind of sums up all of my major thoughts because I don't really like. Again, the characters are. I don't want to spend like a billion years talking about them.
Right. Yeah. There is not enough to.
And we hit the major. We hit the high points.
Yeah.
So, we're good.
So that'll do it for this episode. Next weekend is the end of 2017, and golly, what a year that was.
My goodness, somebody protect me from all these releases.
So we are going to do a special thing. We're going to get Othar and Saturn on the same podcast together.
What?
So
it'll be special. No spoilers, but it'll be something special.
It'll be a fun thing. So thanks to Broke for Free for our background music. Sarah, what is your other podcast like?
Hey, I'm in another podcast with Saturn and Othar /Ian. It's called Big Gay Nerds. It's an LGBT live play tabletop RPG podcast. Where me and a bunch of cool friends sit together and play different types of tabletop RPG systems. We're back in Monster Hearts right now, which is our favorite thing. So you should come check us out. We're on SoundCloud at Big Gay Nerds. So yeah, thanks.
You can follow us on Twitter at The Gorge Podcast. You can email us at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com. Again, our Patreon is patreon.com/thegorgepodcast. Oh,
I got it.
All right.
Fuck all the status effects in this game.
Yeah! Fuck those status... fuck those...
We didn't even really talk about it, but because it wasn't, like, worth talking about too much, but there's, like, 700 of them.
Fuck the Malboros that are just like, here's all of them at once. Ugh.
Yeah.
Fuck that noise shit entirely.
Good night,
Good night, everyone.